Why, yes, I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Live from Little Rock, it's Shane Plays Radio, Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. If you're listening on 99.5 and you're like, what is Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio? We did this same thing last year. And during Washita football over on 96.5, we temporarily, for about 6 weeks, come over to 99.5, sister station 99.5. So there's nothing wrong with your radio. This is Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio. We go for the next hour. It's a lot of fun. Hope you join us. And then in a few weeks, your normal programming on 99.5 will resume in this slot. So I'm your host, Shane Stacks. So happy to be with you. This is Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. You could call in if you're a regular listener, or if you're a new listener, feel free to call in at 501-823-0965, or you can tweet me at Shane Plays. That's ShanePlays. And again, we normally broadcast at this time on 96.5 FM, but for a few weeks, temporarily, we're on 99.5 FM. So, but I hope you come along for the ride if you're a new listener. And then, you know, if you like what you're hearing, in a few weeks, we'll be back over on 96.5. Okay, enough of that. This is Geek Talk Radio. It's just like sports talk radio or religious talk radio or what's wrong with my car talk radio or how do I grow my plants talk radio. There's slugs in my garden, but it's Geek Talk Radio. So it's a great time to be a geek, and this is a lot of fun. This show is a lot of fun to do. Okay, a few notes, and then we'll get to our guest. Our show notes and links for today's show are up on shaneplays.com right now. That's ShanePlays.com, shaneplays.com. You can get show notes for the show. So if you're like, hey, what were they talking about? Or I want to know more about the guest, or what was that news item? Go there and you can get more information. This show does go out as a podcast. It's live talk radio, but there is a podcast version that goes out a few days after the live show. That'll go out at shaneplays.com. It's on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and more. And we're also carried on Krypton Radio. Krypton Radio is sci-fi for your Wi-Fi, kryptonradio.com. We run a week delay. That's an internet radio station that's a lot of fun. So I did mention from now, October 8th through the next 6 weeks, we will be here on 99.5 Live. We'll rebroadcast on Sundays on 96.5, The Answer, sister station at 5 p.m., and then the podcast and the Krypton Radio information does not change. So having flapped my lips about all that, I have a very cool guest who I've been wanting to talk to for quite a while, and we finally got it together. I have Don Wilkins of Maverick Games, who's doing a tactical, turn-based sci-fi computer RPG called Stellar Tactics. Don, welcome to Shane Plays.
Hey, Shane, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, man, glad to have you here. I've been following Stellar Tactics since, and we'll talk about this later. You briefly looked at doing a Kickstarter, and then now you're doing everything through Steam Early Access and all that. And, the game's already available on Steam Early Access. Now, Don, here's what I normally do, but I'm experimenting with the format a little bit. I normally do a news segment at the beginning of the show and then go into the interview. I'm going to do the interview first so we can dive right into that. And if I have any listeners from RPG Codex or RPG Watch, guys, gals, how's it going? I know the RPG Codex is following your game very closely. And that's how I found out about the game, I believe. I was put in touch through somebody over at maybe Infinitron. Somebody brought you to my attention over on RPG Codex. So, if you're cool with that, I don't know if you've ever listened to the show. I don't know if you were expecting a news segment first, but we're just going to jump right in with you if you're okay with that.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Okay, great. So, first of all, tell me a little bit about Maverick Games and your, I guess, experience as a game developer.
Sure. Maybe start with my history a little bit, and then go into Maverick Games and Stellar Tactics. So, I wrote my first game back in 1981 on and this is ultra geeky, but it's kind of it looked like a print terminal. They were basically modem terminals. You'd take a old style phone and plug it into this sort of electronic receiver and dial a number.
Yep.
And this thing would connect to a university database. And back then, basically you type in commands, and those would print on a piece of paper and get sent over the modem to a server, and then things would get compiled. So I kind of wrote this little space adventure game. It was a takeoff on sort of a Star Trek print-based game back then. And, it was just for fun.
And when you say print-based game, when you say print-based game, literally back in the day, these older computer systems would print the output on paper. So, like when you made a move, it would update it on paper, right? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. It was kind of like
teletype,
like Zork or things of that nature. But you'd basically type in a command saying travel to sector 5,20, and it would spit out a little bit of text saying something to the effect of, you engage your warp drive and get pushed back in your seat. And then a couple seconds later, it would come back saying you've arrived. This sector has 3 planets, and things like that. And it was all text. So it certainly left a lot to the imagination back then. And it was just kind of like a little experimental project I did for a while. It was kind of fun. And then, I didn't save the code. I just kind of walked away from it for about, 10 years. I really didn't do any other programming or anything. Then, picked up another computer, started playing some of the games at the time, and thought to myself, wow, this is really cool. I'd like to do this. Maybe this would be a lot more fun than some of the other things I'm doing. And started fiddling around with a couple things, doing a little bit of multimedia, started my own company, brought on a few great artists.
Was that Maverick Games, or was that a different company?
That was Media Interactive Studios.
Okay.
So that was in the early 90s, and we did a lot of at the time, multimedia was the big buzzword, so we were taking a lot of material and content and developing hybrid CDs, CD-ROMs that people could use on Mac and PC. Did a bunch of things like Planetary Taxi, which was a conversion, and Madness of Roland, and a few other things. But I really wanted to do games, so I kind of had this idea. So we worked on this prototype and showed it to Surtech Software.
Surtech. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Surtech. Yep. From the Wizardry series.
Sure.
They're known primarily for that, Jagged Alliance, and a few other things. And they really liked the prototype. And, they decided, well, why don't you work on this Wizardry project for us, which we started doing. That ended up being Wizardry Gold, which was basically Wizardry 7 for Windows.
Wait, hold on. You worked on the Wizardry series. I had no clue.
Yeah, I did Wizardry.
What was your role in that? What was your active role, I suppose?
I'd say, you could call me, from that point forward, I was really a producer in the game industry. Mm-hmm. The conversion that I did to, Wizardry 7 to Wizardry Gold was something I did for my own company. But during that time, I kind of made a decision. I didn't understand the industry very well. And, we were struggling a little bit. So I shut down the studio, which is kind of sad, but at the same time, kind of a good thing, because I got to go work for Surtech Software in upstate New York and work with Ian and Linda Curry and Rob and Norm Siratek.
Wow.
Robin Matthews and a few other people, and just kind of learned, the game industry from the inside, which was really nice. And
let me interrupt you real quick, Don, just in case people listening aren't aware of the pedigree of Suratek and Wizardry. That's like you're interviewing somebody about, their game, and then you find out they worked in these days, I'm trying to think, it's like saying, oh, you're doing the startup. That's cool. Yeah. I used to hang out and work with the engineering at Google. I mean, it's a big deal. I'm trying to give it some context. I didn't expect to hear that during this interview. So, That's very cool.
It's interesting. I haven't mentioned it much because I don't know. I just feel kind of weird talking about it. And I don't know. I'm not really, what's the word? I think I don't market myself very well.
Okay.
And I'm not marketing the game well. I'm just kind of like making this game in my spare time.
Right.
And, some people said, well, why don't you use that in marketing? And why don't you tell people more about what you did? And I've just been busy. This game's eaten up a lot of my bandwidth, but it was, I can't take responsibility for the design of those games. I mean, the kudos for the design really go to, the folks who made them, like Linda and Ian Curry and the other folks. So, but the thing that was interesting is, I really appreciated the fact that they felt that I had enough passion and enough commitment to actually bring me on board at the time. And I learned a lot from them and moved on to a couple other companies working on games like Engineering Animation. They weren't around for very long, but they were a small company that was doing games in Salt Lake City, Utah. And then from there to 3DO for a while. And then to Sierra Entertainment as a producer.
Did you say Sierra?
Sierra, yeah.
Wow, man, you got a pedigree.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you do.
It was fun. I worked on a few cool games. At the time, Homeworld 2 was part of it. Lord of the Rings Online. I had a very small part in that. I kind of kept an eye on that for about 6 or 7 months while that project, we were trying to figure out what was going on. Sierra and Universal Studios at the time, and I think I can say this, it's been enough years, they were kind of in a period of transition because Vivendi Universal purchased Sierra.
Right.
And Universal Studios really wanted Lord of the Rings. And anyway, so that transition took place while I was there, and I did a couple other things like The Hobbit, Tribes Aerial Assault.
Wow, Don.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I had no idea. You've worked on this. Yeah, wow. Okay.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's other games too. I mean, from there I kind of went to smaller development studios for a while, down in the LA area, and then back up to San Francisco. And the game industry is kind of interesting in the sense there were some growing pains at the time, and you can just imagine this bus that was traveling between studios. Yeah. And the bus would stop at a studio and people would get off the bus, and some people would get on the bus and go to the next studio, and there's just a lot of churn,
Yep. Well, it sounds like, I know here in Little Rock, being in web design for several years, I've rubbed shoulders with a lot of advertising agency folks, and they have to hop agencies to basically advance. They have to, it's like, a spot opened up over this other agency. So it's almost expected that you hop agencies, and then maybe come back to the same agency later, so I don't know if it was kind of the same thing that was going on then.
It's interesting that you say that. I think it's a little bit different. What was going on at the time is that big money was trying to figure out how to make money with video games. Mm-hmm. And they had come in with tons of spare cash. And sometimes a mandate, to save. If you make an investment into another organization and purchase a company, there's a huge tax savings. But they also saw this as media and a place where a lot of money could be made. So, a lot of organizations that had never seen a video game were going out and swooping up on companies and studios and things of that nature to try to cash in on this. And the problem was they couldn't quantify how you actually made money.
Right.
And there's only a couple ways you can make real money. And that goes the same for today. You either have to have a breakout hit, or you have to have a game that does have a pedigree that people respond well to, that's of high quality. And things turned in the industry kind of ugly right around that period of time. I'd say, between the 1980 and even now in some cases. And so these studios would get bought, publishers would get bought and sold. And in the process, a lot of people lost their jobs, a lot of really good creative people.
Yeah.
Projects got canceled, things of that nature. And I'm not bitter about it. I understand why the process happened, but that's kind of the nature of what was going on. A lot of times you'd come on board and, you know, projects would get started and then canceled, and then, you know, people involved in those would either get moved to other projects or just let go completely. So, but anyway, and that it was really exciting. And at some point, you know, and right around the turn of, I think pretty much after a stay in the Bay Area, working for a couple of companies, I decided to make a little bit of a change, and I went over and started working in education.
Okay.
And while I was doing that, it took me about 2 years of doing that to say, you know what, this is really great. It's super stable, but I'm kind of bored, and I've got all this spare time on my hands.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe I'll take a stab at making a game. And I've always wanted to make this game.
So what year was that you said, I think I might want to take a stab at making a game?
You know, I think it was right around 2009 or so.
Okay.
Yeah, so right about then I started playing around with a couple things, you know, like pathing and just, you know, character movement and animation, and trying to get some of those things lined up. I knew I wanted to do a top-down isometric kind of RPG, and it had to be sci-fi.
Okay, so I want to stop you there. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to know, and I'm not against these things, I'm just curious, why did you as a developer want it to be a top-down isometric sci-fi RPG?
Okay.
You know, why was that the crucial thing? So, which I'm totally in favor of, you know, plus you've got, you know, turn-based tactical combat, which makes me very happy. And we'll talk. So we'll kind of divert after the break to talking more about Maverick Games and Stellar Tactics, specifically. So, yeah, but no, I definitely think that, you know, if you ever get comfortable doing so, I would probably share more of your game development history. Cause that's very impressive. So, you know, I didn't realize, you know, I knew playing Stellar Tactics that, hey, this guy knows how to make a game, but I didn't know, you know, the other things you've been involved with. So anyway, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue talking with, Don Wilkins of Maverick Games, their game, Stellar Tactics, which is in early access on Steam right now. Don't forget, if you're listening on 99.5, this is a temporary station change. We're normally on 96.5 at this time, and this will continue for the next few weeks during Wichita football, but come along for the ride. It's a lot of fun. And folks, also remember, later in the show, we're going to have a news segment after we get done talking about Stellar Tactics that'll include, what does William Shatner have to do with an upcoming Batman movie? And do we know World of Warcraft's subscriber count or not? There's a little bit of an interesting article about that, plus other news. We come back on Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio.
Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today.
Megawars.net. The classic online space strategy game has returned, bigger and better than ever before. Scout the universe and claim your empire. Construct, customize, and launch dozens of different starships. Battle thousands of opponents online in a team-based competition leading to the ultimate Battle of the Galaxy. Grab your slot today for the only online game where tactics and strategy still reign supreme. Visit megawars.net and get options only available in our special pre-sales previews running now.
megawars.net.
The die is cast. Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Trollord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions, Castles and Crusades is the original, easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.
Hey, welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio, Journey into Things We Love. We are, if you're hearing this on 99.5 and you're like, why is Geek Talk Radio? Why am I hearing this? We're on a temporary station change from sister station 96.5, The Answer, for the next few weeks. But come along for the ride. I think you'll enjoy it. You know, just like I said, come along for the ride. And I'd love to hear from you. You can call in at 501-823-0965. That's 501-823-0965. Or you can tweet me at ShanePlays, ShanePlays. You heard that that last ad was talking about my Patreon. You know, we do have sponsors on the show, and I'm so thankful to have them. However, the Patreon supporters help out a lot. Over the past year, the Patreon support has raised over $400 for the show. And it's truly helpful because as blessed as I am to have the sponsors and thankful for them, they don't cover all the costs of the show. So if you like the idea of Geek Talk Radio, I would welcome your Patreon or Patreon support, however you want to say it. But you do not have to pledge to Patreon to get the show. I do not want to make that. I don't even want to accidentally say that. The show's going to go no matter what. But appreciate any support I can get. So we're talking with Don Wilkins of Maverick Games. He's currently got a game in early access on Steam called Stellar Tactics, and it's a top-down isometric turn-based sci-fi computer RPG. And so we're going to talk to him about that some more. Before that, I was checking out Don's pedigree over the break. He also worked on a little game called Arcanum of Steamworks and Magic Obscura in 2001. So, if you happen to be listening before the break and heard, these games mentioned, that's yet another cool title he worked on. This says you provided creative services on that, Don. I don't know exactly what that means. I'm on Moby Games. But anyway, so we were talking before the break. And, I said, okay, hold that thought. After the break, why were you so set on an isometric, basically turn-based sci-fi RPG?
Well, it was something I felt none of the big publishers were going to do. When you go out and you do focus tests, and publishers do this. Game publishers do, especially if they're going to put a couple of $1 million into a project, which is ballooned up into hundreds of thousands now, or hundreds of millions now.
Yeah, in a lot of cases it's larger than movie budgets.
Yeah, it's an incredible amount of effort, and you've got to have a lot of people involved in some of these games that you're seeing nowadays. We noticed that when we talked about RPG, and we kind of did focus tests on how people would respond to various subgenres within there. Sci-fi just really never. You look at the bar in percentages, the number of people that were interested in classic fantasy RPGs versus sci-fi, people just really didn't want that. Now, that's not to say there wasn't a subgroup of people that were really interested in having it, and it wasn't something that a big publisher was going to back in a big way. And if they were going to do it where it was kind of more of a light RPG with some stats and things like that sort of gave people a feeling of progression, and they could slap the tag RPG on there, but it wasn't truly all that in depth.
Okay.
Now, there were a couple of things, like Fallout, for example, which has just always been one of my favorite, game series of all times. It's much more of a, it pushes into that sci-fi area a bit, but it's not all encompassing. Nobody was doing something where you could actually fly around in a universe, build a crew of people, and do tactical combat. And that's always what I wanted. So,
right. Well, I love
in
tactical combat, Don. And, one of the things about the original first two Fallouts that was so amazing was their turn-based tactical combat with the action point system and all that. So
it was a lot of fun. You really felt like you had to put some thought into what you were doing. I don't mind where Fallout's gone now. I actually really enjoy it. It's kind of fun. The latest it feels much more shootery than any of the other Fallouts that I've played. And, the progression there is pretty solid too. So
it's fun. I will not take away. It is a lot of fun, but it is not, a turn-based RPG experience.
That's right.
Yeah.
And there aren't many of them out there anymore. Who knows, maybe we'll see a resurgence, but I didn't build the game really to go out and make a ton of money, though that's a good thing if I can. That's fine.
Sure.
That pays the mortgage and puts my child through college and things of that nature.
Right.
But it was more of, I kind of chose this instead of building model trains. I like to tell people this. I chose this instead of building model trains or a Ford Cobra in the garage or something like that.
Yeah, you're doing this. Yeah. Well,
which is kind of geeky, right?
It is, but I love it. Yeah. Well, what are you building it in? Like what engine or whatnot are you building it in?
It's a combination of a couple of an off-the-shelf solution, some DLLs, and some other things. And primarily, I'm using something called Shiva, and it's not. It's a smaller sort of development environment. A lot of Lua script, and it's actually a really powerful engine, but it just didn't really take off like Unity for all the devs that are out there, all the indie developers. And there was a time in the last 6 or 7 years where I was kind of worried about my decision, but it's worked out really well. And they're still working hard on that engine all the time, and they've been releasing updates to it.
Nice.
Yeah, but what it does for me is it gives a really small developer, one person, sort of a chance to really make a pretty cool game that works well across numerous platforms. Like, for example, I can target iOS if I want to. I can target Android if I want to. Things of that nature, which I haven't done yet. I'm primarily focused on PC.
Right.
So,
a lot of people think that your game has to hit every platform to be successful. I don't necessarily agree with that. It's fine if you want to do that, but there is a huge PC gaming base, and you can do quite well just focusing on that, especially when it comes to the classic, turn-based RPGs. That's where my gaming heart is. I mean, I like a lot of different games, but a turn-based tactical combat CRPG on my Windows machine is where I'm at, as deep down as a gamer.
Yeah, and it's really hard to do for touch devices. I mean, for example, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 are on iOS now, and they actually, the folks that worked on those did that was
Beamdog. Yeah, they did a good job. Yeah.
How did you feel about that? I mean,
it plays okay. And it's fine, and I think it's cool that they made that happen. But I want my left hand on the keyboard and my right hand on the mouse. That's where I'm at when it comes. That's just where I'm at.
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird. If I'm traveling or going somewhere, I'll bring my iPad with me, and I can get a couple hours in on it, but I really like to sit in front of my PC also and kind of get into these games a bit.
Well, so. I think the company that has done the best with PC, also on mobile, like tablet and whatnot, is I can't believe I'm forgetting the name. They're the ones that did the Shadowrun Returns, because they built them from the ground up to run on both tablet and PC at the same time.
You kind of have to do that, I think. You know, and some people feel when you do that, you diminish the experience on the
you do a little platform. Bit. I mean, I could tell when I was playing PC, I was like, you know, there is some stuff removed here, because I know they're also trying to make this a touch-based game. So I still enjoyed the game very much, but I could tell it wasn't a full PC experience while I was playing it.
Yeah, and you know, for Stellar Tactics, I mean, I'm primarily focused on PC. Once the game goes gold, and I can call it finished, at least for the first iteration of the game, I'm going to try to get this on Mac and Linux too. And I've promised people that I would release on those two platforms, so I will do it. Yeah. I like to keep my promises, and you know, I like to finish too. That's the other thing about this is this is going to take a while to finish, and I could be doing this for another couple of years before I'm really super happy with it. Right. Well, that was going to be my question. Do you have a very loose gold date in mind that you're hoping to hit? Yeah, I don't, honestly. Okay. So I do have a rollout plan. It's posted on the site. Give people an idea of what they can expect. But the key thing right now is to get the game stable, which it is now. I mean, it took, you know, from the release date 2 weeks ago. Let me just mention something here before I go into that. So when you're developing a game, you really do need a lot of people to bang on the game for a while to play it and try different play styles. And I had a few people helping out, but I didn't have a lot. So I knew that when I released this, I'd have a ton of showstoppers. Right. And I actually expected more than we found. Oh, that's good. I think we found probably 6 or 7 showstoppers that had to be fixed really quick. So that's what I've been doing for the last couple weeks. Yeah, I haven't found any showstoppers. I've found some minor stuff with sound settings and whatnot, but nothing. I mean, it's an early access, so you know, I haven't found it. It feels like an early access game. It's playable with some, you know, stuff that you may have to let the developer know about. Yeah, and you know, that's what I've been trying to do is smooth some of those rough edges, make sure that people can progress without any showstoppers. Very few people had a couple of crashes, which should be resolved now. It's just kind of like this weird Steam setting. You'll be happy to hear I have not had any crashes. Yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, it's funny. I think I had 4 or 5 reports total from all the people that did purchase the game. So that's great. But I wanted to make sure I wanted to make sure that anybody who bought the game could play through. So those should be fixed now too. But the thing I find interesting about this sort of thing, doing it by yourself, is that you know when you are going to release it, you're going to have some problems. So I anticipated that. Yeah. And, and you were very focused. I'm trying to think. Concerned. I don't know if it's the right word about not going early access till you were ready, because you and I had several conversations about when do you think you'll be on early access, and you were like, well, I'm kind of hoping for this date, but I'm not sure yet. And then you kind of say, okay, I'm early access on this date. So you know, you didn't even want to go into early access till you hit a certain point. You know, I saw you being very, very, and again, I don't know if careful is the right word, but you know, you're like, it'll go early access when it's ready to go early access. You know, you're not going to commit to a date at that point. Yeah, and you know, I'm kind of fortunate in the sense that you know, I've got a full-time job, and the project is something I'm not relying on for an income. Right. So, you know, I've had a couple of people say, you know, well, I don't know if I want to, you know, back you right now because you might, you know, go away or something, or the whole thing might fail because you need it. Right. You know, you need the money, and you're probably not going to get as much as you think you need. Well, it is, like I said, you know, it's more of a hobby game. It's something I will finish. But yeah, I wanted to make sure that first experience for people was as good as it could be, with really just a couple of folks testing it. And I kind of got to that point right at the beginning of September. So there were some usability things, like, for example, I was watching the video of you playing the second video. And
the one I just put up. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like, for example, like how do you use health kits? And the funny thing, what's really interesting. So you've got an older save from before the description tells you now on the health kits how to use them.
Right.
So you drag them to your secondary slot and you can use them in combat.
Right. Yeah. Which I finally figured it out. It actually doesn't bother me because that's how games used to be. Like back in the day, you just kind of fumbled around with it until you figured it out. But really the only thing that, and I don't know if you heard me mentioning on the video or not, and this is totally subjective. This is not objective at all. Doing left click versus right click for movement and interacting with options or objects, is not intuitive for me. But there's somebody else, that's the way they want it, so that's the only thing I keep clicking the wrong button. But I mean, it's not a
totally
showstopper.
Frustrating. I can see other people being frustrated with that too. I totally agree with you. In fact, it was slightly different a few weeks ago, and then I made a change. I think what I'm going to do is give people an option to choose from a couple of different play styles or click styles.
I would like that, but it's not a showstopper for me by any means. Every game has a certain of its language that you have to learn. So it's like I said, it's not a showstopper. I'm enjoying the game. I'm looking forward to getting into the space travel because
you've got a ways to go actually after this. So
well, go ahead.
Yeah, you're probably about 5, at least from where the second video stopped. You're probably about 3, maybe 3.5 hours from that getting your first ship.
Well, I have a feeling that the game dynamic changes pretty dramatically when that happens. The game that I'm playing now is fun, but I have a feeling it becomes like, it really expands what the game is because, you got this procedurally generated galaxy and you can tailor. Do you want to be a smuggler? Do you want to be this? Do you want to be that? How do you want to outfit your ship? What kind of crew? It seems like it really adds a huge dimension to the game once you begin space travel.
I've been hearing from people once they get out into space, they enjoy the beginning part, and I won't spoil it for you. I don't know if you've seen some of the other stuff, but there's some more things you're going to do on the ship, and then you're going to have a big surprise. Okay, you may or may not be happy with it.
Well, I'm pretty sure that, and I don't want any spoilers, but I'm pretty sure the bald professor guy is up to no good. Yeah, I'm pretty sure of that.
It's funny because, okay, so I agree, and that was the intent, and I'm glad that worked. And that you noticed that there may be something shady with this guy.
Well, he really wants me to blow away that other lady when I find her. And I'm like, I struggled
with that dialogue for a while. I kind of really wanted you to, at that point, to say,
Yeah.
I wonder about this guy.
Yeah.
So
because
you'll find out more. You'll find out more. He's kind of a rascal, but you'll see.
Yeah, he's real insistent that I blow away Dr. Jensen, I think her name is. But I love the guy that after you rescue him, he's like, you know what? I got some snacks. I'm just going to hang out here. he's like,
I'm not even going out there.
Yeah, he's like, that. I'm cool. I've got snacks. You guys have fun. So, all right. Well, let me ask you a couple other questions here, and then we're going to have to hit another break.
Sure.
Okay, Steam Early Access for $19.99. How does somebody come to the price point or the price of it? Like, how do you arrive at I'm always fascinated. How do you assign a value to all the work you're putting into something?
It's really difficult. I struggled with that too for a while. And at first, I was thinking maybe I'll charge a lot more because fewer people are going to buy this because this is it's not mainstream. It's not kind of like, it's not what kids these days are playing.
Well, I'll tell you the reason because you did a sci-fi CRPG, turn-based. That's why we're talking. That's what caught my attention. So I just want it's getting some people's attention. I'll tell you that.
It is. It's interesting. I mean, I've been on the forums quite a bit and talking to people, and a lot of people are really saying nice things. I have to say my forums are the least contentious forums I've seen on Steam.
Good.
Which is nice. I like that people are being cool. Let me get back to your other question though. It's the price point is something you kind of look at other games that are similar. You have to ask yourself, how much effort did I put into this thing? What do I feel is a fair price? And that was the key thing for early access for me. I really wanted to make sure that I wasn't charging too much, which would upset people, that I was not charging so little that I couldn't, do some cool things that I want to do with the game, because, models, animations, characters, they cost money.
Yeah. Well, that leads me into, I am curious about how you write the price, but are you a dev of one? Are you a dev team of one? Are you the only one doing this game?
That's it. Yep. Just me.
So including the art assets, everything?
Well, some of the art assets are licensed, or I go out to people and they just, they'll build out a character model for me. I've got some tools for other characters, things of that nature. So, but all of that stuff, those are all choices I make. Then I take them and I integrate them, get them textured, put them together, animate everything, and code everything. So
you're basically a dev team of one. You're using some assets that you've licensed, but other than that, you're doing everything on your own. Okay.
Yeah. And the 6 years that I spent doing this so far has the majority of all the time has just been the core engine, the combat tactics engine, the dialogue engine, the mission systems, all of that stuff. There have been rather large chunks of time spent on the character animations, textures, character creation, rigging, all the other stuff that you have to do. And it's kind of weird because in the industry, not everybody knows how to do all of these things.
Right.
And I'm not tooting my own horn here. I had to learn a lot. Animation just killed me.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
6 months, and I almost in the middle of that just stopped the project completely. In fact, I walked away from it for 3 months.
Wow, that does sound tough. So yeah, if you're wearing every hat out there, fortunately, like you said, you've got a full-time job. You can work on this at your own timeline. So a lot of some of the stress that would normally be there is not. You're not answering to investors or producers or anything like that, or publishers. But so I guess the $19.99 price point, you just feel that's a fair price for the game.
Exactly. And the key is, how many hours of entertainment are you going to get out of it? And the key with this one is, I'd say on average, people are getting 8 hours. I've got people with 40 hours into the game at this time.
Wow.
I think one guy actually, if I remember right, has almost 120 hours. I don't know.
That's great.
Well, remember too, this is just the prologue, so it stops at a certain point in the first system. So the rest of the universe has not been opened yet. It will be.
And again, it's a procedural universe. So you enter a code at the beginning of the game that randomizes the universe and et cetera. So I want to ask one final question here, and then I got to take us to a break. When we come back, we're going to do a news segment. With it being procedural and like all this exploring, is there an endpoint to the storyline, and then people can just explore, or how does that work?
Yeah, sure. So the storyline is not mandatory, other than the prologue. As soon as the prologue missions are done, and as soon as the FTL points open up during alpha, you'll be able to go and do whatever you want. You don't have to follow the main story as it continues. As I start releasing story content during alpha and beta, you can just go out and explore, progress your team. You can mine for minerals. You'll be able to craft, items that you need. Mm-hmm. You'll be able to disable and board other ships eventually.
Yeah, I saw that, where you could basically embark on a life of piracy if you want to. So yeah, it seems pretty open-ended, but then there's an optional storyline, sounds like. Yeah. I hate to move us forward. Radio is on time, and time is a predator that stalks us all our lives. So I got to get us to a break. Problem. But what Final question. Do you have a target number of units that if you sold, you'd be like, wow? I mean, do you have like kind of a number that you're hoping to sell before everything's said and done?
That's a good question. I don't. I really don't. This thing is just going to keep building on itself probably until I just completely burnt out. Even after I retire, I'll probably still
just keep going with it. Okay.
Yeah, because it's like this thing I can just fill with story content and new things all the time.
Do you feel, and if you don't feel comfortable sharing, don't, but do you feel comfortable sharing how many people have bought early access?
No, I can't say.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, you can go to Steam Spy.
Yeah, and get an idea. Yeah.
It gives you kind of a general idea. It's not too far off.
Okay. Well, did that warm your were you like, wow, I'm happy with that? What's happened so far? Okay.
Actually,
good.
yeah, I've been really surprised. There's two things that I'm thrilled with. One is the reception from people.
Yeah.
There are other people who played the game for 5 minutes, got really pissed, wrote a review that says everything's crap and 2 or 3. Can you say that on the radio?
Well, you can, but it's getting close on what you can't say. But
okay, and they've given me some bad reviews, and I understand that's their opinion. I get it.
Well, I hate to do that. I got to take us to a break. So when I come back, I'm going to do an extremely abbreviated news segment. You're welcome to stick around for that if you would like. So, all right, so some goblins are your friends. Game Goblins is Central Arkansas's premier retailer of Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40K, board games, card games, RPGs, miniatures, and hobby accessories. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. They are conveniently located 1121 South Bowman, right on the corner of Bowman and Canis in West Little Rock. For all your gaming needs, I heartily recommend Game Goblins. Make sure to check out their customer loyalty program that rewards you based on your actual purchases. Game Goblins earns your business and keeps it. First-time customers, mention Shane Plays and receive $10 off your purchase of $50 or more. Tell them Shane Plays sent you.
Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today.
Megawars.net.
The classic online space strategy game has returned, bigger and better than ever before. Scout the universe and claim your empire. Construct, customize, and launch dozens of different starships. Battle thousands of opponents online in a team-based competition leading to the ultimate Battle of the Galaxies. Grab your slot today for the only online game where tactics and strategy still reign supreme. Visit megawars.net and get options only available in our special pre-sales previews running now.
Megawars.net.
The die is cast. Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Trollord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions. Castles and Crusades is the original, easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.
Hey, welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio. We've got about not quite 4 minutes left in the show. Joined by Don Wilkins. Go check out his sci-fi turn-based isometric tactical RPG Stellar Tactics on Steam. Thanks again, Don, for being on the show. I've really enjoyed talking with you. And we are going to do the most abbreviated news segment that Shane Plays has ever done. There we go. There's the news. Steve Marston, thanks for producing the show today, buddy. You've done a great job. I really appreciate you. Zach's covering Washita football on 96.5. Okay, if you want to know more about these news items, folks, go over to shaneplays.com and check out the show notes because they're linked there. So first of all, William Shatner will voice Two-Face in Batman Return of the Caped Crusaders sequel. That's right. Captain Kirk himself, the Shat, will voice Two-Face in Batman Return of the Caped Crusaders sequel, and that's via comicbook.com. Next, from iDigitalTimes, Star Trek Discovery will alter the original series Alien Physiology. So the appearance of established aliens from Star Trek, the original series, will change somewhat. We don't know how much. For Star Trek Discovery, which is set about 10 years before the original series time frame. So a lot of anticipation and trepidation for the show to see what they do with Star Trek. Next, Netflix, and this is from Polygon, confirms that The Punisher will premiere in 2017 and is adding 3 new cast members. So The Punisher is spinning out of Daredevil Season 2 and is played by Jonathan Berthel, I think. Berthel, he's the guy that was Shane on The Walking Dead. Also, villains for, here we go, from comicbook.com, villains for the Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow crossover have been revealed, and they're the same aliens from the classic Invasion storyline from, I think, the late 80s in DC Comics. So I'm not sure if they're called the Dominators. I'd have to look that up, but they're the aliens, they're like yellow aliens with like red circles on their faces or something. So that will be the crossover. Next, via Polygon, did Legion, the new release for World of Warcraft, boost World of Warcraft subscriber numbers to over 10 million? There was I think it was a Polish interview, quoted one of the main developers as saying that with Legion coming out, that World of Warcraft was slightly over 10 million subscribers, which was down from their high of 12 million, but much higher than their low of 5 million. So, but then Blizzard was quick to say, no, though we don't talk about numbers. So that's not correct, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. It's possible. Evidently, the concurrent numbers of people playing World of Warcraft at the same time right now are similar to their high point. I think was that after the Burning Crusade came out, or one of their big expansions, they just hit, they were up to 12 million subscribers, and their concurrent players is similar to that. So they could be at 10 million. If I was Blizzard and I was back to 10 million, I'd be bragging on that. So I don't know. And then last, this is via The Guardian. Norway's prime minister has been caught playing Pokemon Go in Parliament. While Parliament, Steve, you're in there smiling, laugh. While Parliament is in session, they got her playing Pokemon Go while she's overseeing Parliament. So anyway, those are the news stories you can go check out. Go to shaneplays.com to check those out. Did Don drop? Do we still have Don?
I think he's still here.
Don, you still there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm still.
Hey, man, thanks for joining us. People, go check out Stellar Tactics, early access on Steam. We'll catch you next week on Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio. Thanks so much for being on, Don.
Yeah, thank you, Shane.
Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. No tears, tears for Caesar. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is often interred with their bones, so let it be with Caesar. The noble Brutus hath told you Caesar was ambitious. If it were so, it was a grievous fault, and grievously hath Caesar answered it. Here under leave of Brutus and the rest, for Brutus is an honorable man, so are they all honorable men. Honorable men, honorable men. This was a man, this No tears for Caesar.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.